In this video, I'm going to talk about biological hybrids between different species on a planet called Origin. Some are within the same genus, others only share a family. First though, I want to briefly mention a hybrid within the same species but different subspecies that was the subject of my video about sapient dragons. Drañyn are products of union between Draconye and Drañyn. Both are of the species Yoshus lenta, and known as Newshoes. While they're completely genetically compatible, they have some notable differences. While all Newshoes have stark sexual dimorphism, there's not many animals with a more stark dimorphism than Draconye. Actually, there probably are. Anyway, male Draconye are the second largest sapient life form on average, even larger than the Kaidos bears of the Orient. Anyone who says Draconye are the biggest are probably racist because of their omission of lichens. Who can forget lichens? Anyway, Draconye have fat in their horns that's really good at storing energy. Their whole body is built for energy storage, which is nice when you live in what's basically the North Pole. Drañyn are smaller on average than Kaidos bears, but still really big. They tend to have a leaner build than Draconye, and the fat in their horns is really good at storing water. They can sweat as juveniles, and some adults keep that ability. Drañyn tend to have intermediate metabolisms, leaning more to the side of the parent they inherited their sex characteristics from. For example, a male Drañyn with a Draconye father will lean more toward a Draconye metabolism. Drañyn are usually taller than both their parents, getting the longer-legged Drañyn proportions alongside the huge Draconye torso. If you're interested in Newshoes, definitely watch my Speculative Anthropology Sapient Dragons. But let's get into some new territory. Keeping with the theme of sapient hybrids, let's talk about humanoids. I'm still not sure as I'm writing this if this video is coming out before or after Speculative Evolution Humans, but assuming it comes out before or you haven't watched Humans, humanoids are one of the more diverse monophyletic clades of sapient life forms. Still, they all seem to be able to interbreed with each other, even if it hasn't been documented for certain combos. 3 species of elves constitute the genus Dryloch, while 3 species of humans constitute the genus Homo. Watch my humans video if you haven't already, or whenever it comes out to learn more about them. Just to note, only one of those in the genus Homo are unprofessionally referred to as humans. The others are Noir and Trifle. As of 2092, there are no documented hybrids of Noir, or the 2 weirder species of elves. You know the ones. So first I want to talk about the most common, a hybrid between humans and elves, specifically Homo sapiens and Dryloch. Elves' most notable trait is their weirdly pronounced lack of sexual dimorphism. Without a surgery or DNA test, it's impossible to say whether an elf gives birth or makes others give birth, and even then it's not 100% accurate unless it actually happens. When it comes to their hybrids, a lot depends on the sex they are and what they inherited from their parents. If they're the same sex as the elf parent, they tend to look more like elves due to the chromosome they inherited. This includes the lack of sexual dimorphism, and nearly all can grow a beard. If a hob is the same sex as the human parent, they look mostly human. You can always tell someone is a hob by their hairline though. If the eyebrows touch the hairline, it's a hob. Hobs tend to be much more common in Drydoland because of immigrant Anthroposians or Tauresians, which happens way more than the elf leaving Drydoland to go anywhere else on the continent. Among hobs that aren't in Drydoland, it's an unfortunately common but inappropriate question to ask which parent is the elf. It provides more knowledge than most would like to give about their biology. Another humanoid hybrid is the kobold. With the vast difference between the metabolism of Trifle and the metabolism of elves, along with the distance between where Trifle hail and where elves hail, kobolds are the rarest humanoid hybrid. Because of how kobolds who are the same sex as their elf parent tend to have elf-like metabolisms and body types, it seems like the Trifle mana stripes gene only shows in kobolds who are the same sex as their Trifle parent. This can cause problems because Trifle metabolisms are extremely specialized for their high mana intake and can run internal temperatures around 50 degrees. It ends up being that between a pair of female elf and male Trifle, only female babies survive to childbirth, and males die of what's likely similar to hypothermia or a lack of nutrients. Between a female Trifle and a male elf, still only female babies survive, and males rarely get big enough to see without a microscope due to the high heat. Even then, it's pretty rare for any non-Trifle sperm to survive in the womb of a Trifle, since they don't have the adaptations for high temps. But yeah, because of all this, all Trifle hybrids are female. Including the last hybrid I want to talk about, which is between Trifle and humans. They're called Djinns, and their rarity is between hobs and kobolds. You can usually find them in clover. The interesting thing about them is that they're the only known fertile humanoid hybrid. This is likely because they're more closely related to each other than they are to elves. However, they're not completely compatible. Like I said, they have the same issue of only female babies surviving to birth, though they can backcross to whatever matches their metabolism just fine. While Jinn tend to be shorter than the average trifle, ones with the trifle mother are on the taller side, while ones with a human mother tend to be shorter. A Jinn's build is more in between, meaning Jinn are often heavier than their trifle mothers when they have them, despite being decently shorter. You might be wondering, if Jinn are always female, who's the dude on the left? Well, other trifle hybrids don't seem to have reactions like this, but it seems like taking hormones, for example ones for trans people, can activate whatever gene turns on or off the mana stripes thing. It doesn't happen for everyone, but for example a trans man with a human mother could gain mana stripes and the accompanying mana addiction, for lack of a better term, while a trans man with a trifle mother could lose them. It's more common to gain them than lose them though. On top of that, I also chose the trans guy on the left to represent this, even though he has mana stripes, just because I want to show that Jinn can have either or. I do want to say though, that it's pretty damn rare to see a male Jinn, to the point that most would assume he's trifle despite his face shape, facial hair, hair color, hair texture, eye color, nose, build, and probably other things. Now I want to talk about some non-sapient hybrids for a bit, starting with Pollito, a common pseudogyn livestock. They tend to be kept in a group with one male and multiple females, also known as pollitas. They're almost exclusively farmed for meat, but their eggs and feathers are nice too. The Dudu is a culturally important dragon from the Orient. It's revered by many of the people there to a near deity level, but it tends to give Nushu's people the creeps. Not only is it a large and tall flying dragon, it's also known to stare blankly at other dragons like Nushu's, while ignoring humanoids and most other animals. Even though Pollitos and Dudu are technically assigned different genuses and only in the same family, they are capable of hybridizing readily. This hybrid creates an animal nearly as big as a Dudu, but with the well-known and widely liked taste of Pollito. The most common one is called a Pollozuru, which is the one used for meat. That one is a bit between a female Dudu and a male Pollito. There exist Duduitos though, which are between a male Dudu and a Pollita. Those are only really useful as pets and are rare. While Pollozuru are useful, concerns exist about the ethics around making them. In order to breed with a Dudu, the Pollito has to be completely starved of seeing those of its own kind for its entire life. Otherwise, it will simply refuse to mate with a Dudu. So, Pollozuru farms will give a mother Dudu a Pollito egg to take care of, which she often kills after it hatches. Since this is a fairly new practice, breeders are still figuring out how to get more Pollozuru. They're sterile, so it's impossible to get more even if you have a pair of male and female. The debacle has brought into question the ban of artificial insemination of animals, which has been in effect for centuries in almost the entire Occident. Another hybrid comes from the Orient and is actually more common in some places than either of its parents. It's a great example of hybrid vigor, the phenomenon of hybrids being stronger and healthier than either of their parents. This is the hippocamp, a common mount in Old Bearic. It's more useful in carrying heavy luggage than the hippogriff, and better at traversing less flat terrain. The problem is that it needs copious amounts of water and food constantly, so the desert is near impossible to traverse whether you've got a hippocamp or a hippogriff. The most common breed nowadays, the King's Head hippocamp, was bred to have that weird mustache in honor of the Anthropocene king. The Kelpie is a non-domesticated animal from the swampy regions of the Anthropocene Peninsula. It has a symbiotic relationship with the plants on its back, and evolved humps to store water and nutrients for them. The plants help it keep it cool and give the animal extra energy. When a female hippocamp breeds with a male Kelpie, it creates a hybrid called a Dryloch. It doesn't have plants, but keeps the humps of its father, though slightly smaller. If the parents were switched, it would have smaller humps and still have plants from its mother in the womb, meaning it's actually weaker because the plants would drain its water and nutrients faster. Drylochs are significantly more energetic and healthy than Kelpies, since they don't tend to have plants, and much bigger thanks to their hippocamp mother. While they're not as big as a hippocamp, they're still big enough to ride and hold all your stuff while trekking through the desert. Maybe those plants are more parasitic than symbiotic. I also want to talk about hybrids made for tourism. The greater bubblegum bird lives in the forests of Buxina in the Glaciant. It's revered for its smarts and its carnivorous nature. While they live somewhat close together, it's afraid of the lesser bubblegum bird. This one is far more aggressive and less intelligent, though it mostly eats algae and planktonic life. They're both very popular in zoos, which is where this hybridization happened. While greater BBs stay away from lesser BBs in the wild, they can't always do that when kept in smaller areas. In an ethically questionable zoo, a lonely lesser BB was able to breed with a greater BB, causing what the zoo called the superior bubblegum bird. These animals are always sterile and have the opposite of hybrid vigor. While they are larger than either of their parents due to posture, they often have organ trouble, pain in their vertebra, and stunted intelligence. Their beak is somewhere between sharp and sturdy for predation, and also spoon-like for collecting algae. The combination allows their beaks to be near useless, and they need to be fed soft food to survive. Because of how they're fed, they don't get the pink colors of their parents, but theoretically might be able to. Unfortunately, most people don't know how difficult life is for these superior BBs, and like the spectacle of a giant bird that's a hybrid of two very cool giant birds. Lastly, let's get into the realm of sapient hybrids again, but with an absolutely terrible twist. Kaidos bears are sapient bears from the Orient that came west via rafts and got recognized as a sapient species by the government there. Unfortunately, they're still considered monsters in the East, and are killed when they stray into human settlements. Humans designated territories to them long ago in an attempt to avoid dealing with them, and while this has worked out mostly well for them, it, along with climate change and rising sea level, have left Kaidos with limited area to live safely. Another bear species that's way more dangerous is the mage bear, which is not considered sapient, though it is very smart. It can actually speak human languages in what sounds like a woman's voice to lure travelers in and kill them. No one's totally sure why it likes to kill people so much more than anything else, but theories range from magic to boredom. People have reported not hearing the voice when someone else in the group does, hinting that mage bears might have an ability similar to pseudojans to speak inside someone's mind. That would also explain how they can sound like a human woman. While they can speak, there's evidence that they might not know what they're saying. Their words are usually along the lines of, "Help, what is that? What's wrong?" and "That's not a person." It's likely that they're mimicking previous victims. This is where we get to the real effed up part. Feel free to skip ahead if you're not comfortable with what you can probably guess I'm going to talk about. This is a video about hybrids after all. I'm not going to get graphic with it, but as Kaidos were forced inland by rising sea levels, their habitat combined with the habitat of the mage bear, which caused hybrids. All document hybrids are from a male mage and female Kaidos, and all were abandoned or killed as cubs. However, an elf living in Draconia named Sean McEpt was nice enough to let me study what he calls his adopted son, a hybrid bear he named Bearic. It's still just a cub, but significantly larger than Sean or even me. More importantly, it seems to understand common just fine. Sean says its favorite food is samaroki, a popular Pseudosian dish made from deep-fried bollito. Contrary to most Pseudosians though, Bearic prefers his samaroki with cat soup. Sean says he also likes mustard on it, which is similarly frowned upon by Pseudosians. While most Kaidos love fruit, Bearic seems to be more interested in meat, pointing back to his mage ancestry. I'm interested to keep an eye on Bearic as he grows into adulthood. That's about it for this video. What do you think about hybrids? I think they're an absolutely amazing side of biology, although they might sometimes be ethically questionable to say the least. Mules are probably in my top 5 of all animals, also red wolf and coyote wolf hybrids in general. I've got plenty of valid reasons to like mules, but all I can really say about coyote wolf hybrids is that I think they look really cool. And also cute. Little doggies. I also wanted to say one more thing that isn't really related to the video, though it also has to do with hybrids in real life, and I want to know what y'all think about it. Let me also start by saying that my knowledge of the situation comes completely from Wikipedia, and it's totally possible that I have it all wrong. I think I'm in the minority on this, but I don't get the emphasis on genetic purity when it comes to animal conservation. Not only is it an icky idea on the surface, I just don't think it makes any sense in the modern day. We as humans are part of nature, we're literally animals. I think conservation is great in terms of keeping as much diversity as possible on Earth, and I don't get why that doesn't apply to hybrids. I'll use the red wolf as an example. From my understanding, it's basically confirmed that they're hybrids of coyotes and gray wolves. They're also super endangered, and I feel like the purity thing gets in the way of conservation when genetic tests, measurements, and x-rays have to be done to make sure they weren't hybridized with either of their parent species within some arbitrary amount of time. Like, they just be doing that, and if it helps their survival, I don't see why it's a problem that they still hybridize with wolves and coyotes instead of just with each other. There's also the example of giant salamanders, which are similarly super rare. They've adapted to the pressures humans put on them by hybridizing with the other giant salamanders and are now mostly a hybrid species. Not only are the hybrids not conserved despite being endangered, you can't even tell which ones are hybrids without genetic tests. Also, lots of animals are hybrids without human intervention. Many modern humans are hybrids since we have varying amounts of Neanderthal DNA, and I think other ones too. Also, the ancestors of snow leopards show evidence of interbreeding with the ancestors of lions. What's my source? Again, just Wikipedia. So I could totally be misinformed. I'm looking forward to seeing people's opinions on this. Check out my Patreon where you can subscribe for just $1 a month to support me and get your name at the end of my videos. Thanks Captain Kobop, Art of Dying, and Mr. Kill. Sorry I took 2 weeks off, I was away from home visiting someone very important to me. And our cats. Thanks for watching!